So today I wanted to record a video talking about the experience of feeling into the difficult stuff and how the more that you do this, it becomes quite clear that there really is nothing to run from. So early on, this can be hard to believe, but I just wanted to share from my own experience that no matter what it feels like we need to keep distance from, no matter what it feels like is coming up in our experience that is too much, that we shouldn't go there, there's nothing to run from. So the more you practice this, the more relief there is when the difficult experiences come through, because it's just more and more natural to feel into it. It's really just about holding space. It's like you become the space for all these different experiences that have been pushed away for so long, that have been repressed, that have been told, no, you're not allowed to be here. So the key fact I wanted to kind of stamp down on today is there's nothing to run from. Just kind of explore that. What would it mean if there's nothing to run from? Maybe it will bring to, if you sit with that, if you think there's nothing to run from, or what am I running from? Because it might bring to the surface exactly where the experience where that belief is in place, where there is a belief saying, but what about this? Surely I shouldn't feel that. Surely this thought, this experience, this emotion is too much. Surely that's too much. If that comes up, that's good. That's exactly how this process needs to go. You need these experiences to come to the surface. You need these hidden beliefs, these hidden resistance patterns to come to the surface to be able to see them. Otherwise they're unconscious. Otherwise they're still in play, but you don't know about them. So if I'm talking about this, that there's nothing to run from in your experience, but it will feel like there is, that's where the investigation needs to take place. That's where this work happens. Okay, where is this not clear in my experience? And the way to clarify it is to let go into the experience and to notice the resistance to that and the friction that's trying to hold distance. And you don't need to judge that either. But the more you just stay with it, you stay with the friction, you stay with the resistance, you stay with the experience that feels too much, and then you do some inquiry. Well, what is too much in this experience? What is this experience without the label too much? You see, we often really don't even realize that this applies to the thing that we're thinking about, right? So I remember this in my own experience and comments from other people where there will be an experience happening in the body. Maybe it's a lot of physical discomfort. And then the mind turns it into a much bigger deal than it actually is. But when we are in the mind, it feels like that big deal that the mind is turning it into. So, I've been exploring this recently in periods where there's more stuff coming up, if there's tension or contraction, resistance patterns that need to be dissolved and released. Then I can see how the first mental interpretation is, this is too much. This is, I can't sit with this. This is too much. And then I notice that thought, and then it's like go into the physical itself. What is that thought referencing? What is the mind referencing? Go into that, and you so quickly see how it's mildly discomfort, like it's mildly uncomfortable. Angelo has a video on this, or I can't remember which one, but he points this out quite clearly, that he calls it like static discomfort. It's in one of his equanimity playlist videos, where when we actually investigate that experience that the mind is reacting to, it's mildly discomfort. It's uncomfortable to stay here, but you realize you can stay here, right? And you realize that, yeah, it's actually not as bad as the mind makes it out to be. And it's quite a funny thing to realize, because whenever I notice that, the mind's saying like, whoa, this is too uncomfortable to sit with. And then you come back and you're like, wait, is it really? like that's the way to investigate it. It's like, is it really too uncomfortable to sit with? How uncomfortable is it actually? And it's like, yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, I would rather get up and distract myself. But can I go deeper? Or can I just stay there? And the key is to really notice that any label is kind of drifting away. And it's fine. You don't need to judge yourself. Like, that will happen. But if you just keep coming back to it, you'll be able to get less caught up in the labels. So sure, the mind wanders. You'll be sitting there and it'll be like, whoa, this is too uncomfortable. I want to get up and do this future thing, or thinking about the past. And then you realize referencing past and future is a way to get away from the present experience. It's literally all it is some learned kind of coping mechanism to try to avoid feeling what's here, but it doesn't actually work, because what's here is still here, and then we just delude ourselves in the mind. So notice when you drift from the experience and then come back to it. Okay, that's uncomfortable. But what is it? Well, what is uncomfortable? Like, and this is where I say there's nothing to run from. So that's when you can start to discard the fears of the mind, right? So the mind will say, well, if I stay here, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. You know, you'll be able to tell what the thoughts are saying for yourself. For different people, it might be different things. The thought that works is the one that you believe, right? The mind hook that catches you is the one that you believe, that says, nope, I'm going to go back into this state that I had in the past, or I'm going to lose my mind, or I'm going to not love myself anymore, or if I go too deep into this experience, I'm never going to come out of it. All of that, that's a thought. And this clarifies when we do it. Okay, there's nothing to run from. That is just a distancing mechanism, because for so long we've repressed these experiences. For so long, there's so much habit to resistance that once we go layer by layer by layer deeper, that we stay with it, right? So we stay with it. So then the initial thought saying, this is too uncomfortable, I can't stay here. We let that go. And then the next layer comes up where it's like, oh no, okay, but now it's too much. And then you let that go. And what happens is you go more and more into the unknown, which is the last place the mind wants to go. So that's why inquiries that point you into the unknown are so powerful, because you just don't grab onto thoughts anymore. It's like, okay, what if I don't grab that thought? But I come back into, just into the experience. What's here if I don't grab onto a thought? And there's only one way to clarify this. What I mean by that is, sure, there's different techniques we can use, but the only way to actually clarify this is to do it yourself. It's like the mind wants to read about it. The mind wants to watch videos about it. And that can all be helpful. I was talking about this on the live stream yesterday. That's helpful to a point, right? It takes us to the point where we now have to let go into the unknown. And that's where we will encounter resistance, tension, fear. That is the barrier, right? And we keep touching into it. If you keep touching into it, you'll get more comfortable in that space. You'll realize you have more capacity to feel that stuff than you previously thought. You have more capacity than the thoughts will be saying that you do. So keep in mind that there's nothing to run from. And once you really truly trust that, right? That trust comes from your own experience. I can share it with you from my experience, but I'm not trying to debate this or convince anybody. It's a willingness of your own exploration. It is really fueled by your own drive to get to the roots of your own suffering, your own drive to know your deepest truth, your own drive to no longer get caught up in the suffering of your mind, to be pulled around by endless disappointment and false beliefs of that's going to make things better. That's going to make things better. That's all fine. I'm not judging any of that, but that's where the willingness to go into these spaces comes from. It doesn't come from me telling you to go there. I can share this is what I try to do, is an invitation. It's like, it's okay. You can go there. It's okay. Don't trust the fears. Don't trust the doubts. Don't grab onto the doubts. And just keep exploring this, and your own kind of willingness to go deeper might arise. This life circumstances might force your hand, which is good in the long run, right? So it might feel like, damn, everything's going wrong right now. But maybe that's exactly what you need to do to let go. And on the other side of it, you'll see the grace in that discomfort, in that tragic or whatever it is, in that kind of falling apart of your life circumstances. So, yeah, it's okay to go there. And lastly, it's, sometimes we will touch into the space, and then we can use soothing if the mind really has a strong reaction. This is what my previous video was on, and I would recommend it, the one about freeze mode. For some people, we need to work in tandem here, like pushing into the unknown. And then if we're getting dysregulated, then do some soothing, do some compassion, do some, these kind of practices. But sometimes there's just so much coming up. It will clear, it will pass, and you will navigate your way through it. So, I can share the things that help. And you will, you're not going to navigate it perfectly. I've had times where things were so intense that I would distract, and then eventually it calms down and I get back into the good practices that are helpful, and things just work themselves out. So that's the balance to this approach, is like really drive yourself into the unknown, let go deep. And you can use soothing if the nervous system is struggling. Use kind of internal family systems techniques of speaking to that overwhelmed child. That's a part of this process, is digging deep with inquiry and then kind of holding loving space for what comes up. And if we're struggling, if that doesn't make sense, then you dig deep with inquiry. And then if something comes up and you're overwhelmed, then you hold space, give it love. Really just don't try to control it at all. Let it be what it is. It just wants to be held. It just wants to be allowed. It just wants to be allowed to be what it is. Fear just wants to be allowed to be felt as fear. Shame wants to be allowed to be felt as shame, not to be responded to with, this is bad, I need to become a better person so that I don't feel shame and all of that kind of stuff. So that's the approach, dig in, heal, or allow. Healing becomes natural with love and compassion. Then you dig in and then you go, and then so yeah, I think that covers what I wanted to say today, and good luck.